You are not merely watching a movie or observing a chaotic news cycle. You are the lead character in a grand finale that was scripted 2,000 years ago, and the exit doors are being locked from the outside while you argue about your digital distractions. Welcome back to the Awakened Seal. We are standing at the absolute precipice of a civilizational cliff, a moment where the horizontal line of human history is being violently intersected by the vertical line of a divine timeline, and yet the majority of the population is walking toward the edge with their eyes glued to the glowing rectangles in their palms. To understand the magnitude of the present, you have to stop looking at events as isolated accidents of geopolitics and start seeing them as the gears of a massive ancient clock that has finally struck midnight. This isn't about some distant, dusty religious tradition. It is about the cold, hard mathematics of prophecy converging with the brutal reality of 2026. For 2,000 years, the world moved in cycles of rise and fall, empire and decay, but never before has every single variable of the end-state equation been present simultaneously until this exact window of time. The centerpiece of this entire cosmic architecture is the fig tree, a symbol so profound that it dictates the very expiration date of the current world order. When you look at the rebirth of Israel in 1948, you aren't just looking at a political anomaly or a post-war colonial settlement. You are looking at a biological impossibility in the world of political science. No nation in the history of the human race has ever been violently uprooted, scattered to the four corners of the earth for 19 centuries, had its language declared dead, and its people nearly exterminated, only to return to its specific ancestral plot of land and become a global powerhouse in a single day. This is the fig tree putting forth its leaves, and the math Jesus gave us is chillingly precise. He told us that the generation that sees this happen will not pass away until everything is fulfilled. Now take a breath and look at the actuarial tables of human life. A biblical generation is 70 to 80 years, and if you do the arithmetic from 1948, you realize that the clock is not just ticking, it is screaming. We are currently sitting in the overlap of that 80-year window, a period where the strength of that generation is reaching its terminal velocity. This is why the world feels like it is vibrating with a frequency of impending doom, because it is. We are living in the red zone of history. The second gear turning in this machine is the unprecedented eruption of global conflict that defies the traditional logic of the Pax Americana. For decades, the illusion of stability was maintained by a unipolar world order, but that mask has been ripped off to reveal 46 active burning conflicts that are tearing the fabric of the planet apart simultaneously. This isn't just about borders or resources anymore, it is a systemic breakdown of the human capacity for peace. Look at the war in Ukraine. A meat grinder that has consumed 500,000 souls and turned the breadbasket of Europe into a graveyard of heavy metal and shattered lives. Look at the Middle East, where the ancient enmity between the sons of Abraham has escalated into a multi-front regional conflagration involving Iran, Lebanon, Yemen, and the direct intervention of the American military machine. This is nation rising against nation in a way that is no longer contained to a single theater. It is a global contagion of violence. Even as I speak, the social contracts in the West are disintegrating, and the specter of civil unrest is haunting the streets of the world's most powerful capitals. The 2026 data shows us that we aren't just seeing wars, we are seeing the rumors of wars amplified by a digital panopticon that keeps the human nervous system in a state of perpetual fight or flight. This is the birth pains. Any mother will tell you that birth pains don't just happen, they increase in both frequency and intensity until the delivery. What we are witnessing is the contraction of history. The tremors are getting closer together. The intensity is becoming unbearable. And while the masses are told to look at the GDP or the next election cycle, the reality is that the global financial system is being hollowed out to fund this terminal expansion of conflict. We are witnessing the death of the dollar hegemony and the rise of a multipolar chaos that was foretold with terrifying accuracy. You feel it in your gut, that sense that normal is never coming back. And you are right. Normal was a temporary luxury afforded to a generation that wasn't yet standing at the door. But the door is now opening. The geopolitical chessboard is being flipped, and the pieces are being rearranged for a final movement that no amount of political maneuvering can stop. We are seeing the convergence of the spirit of the age with the physical reality of a collapsing ecosystem and a fracturing humanity. The very earth is groaning, not just from environmental mismanagement, but from a spiritual weight that has become too heavy to bear. The earthquakes in various places aren't just seismic events. They are the heartbeat of a planet that knows its current iteration is coming to an end. From the 7.7 magnitude shock in Myanmar to the unexpected tremors in regions with no seismic history, the foundation of our physical world is being shaken to remind us that nothing here is permanent. You have been lied to by a system that wants you to believe in a linear future of progress, but the truth is that we are in a circular return to a moment of reckoning. The enlightened modern man thinks he has outgrown these ancient warnings, but as the 318 million people facing acute hunger can tell you, the thin veneer of civilization is only 3 missed meals away from total collapse. In 2025 and 2026, we saw the unthinkable. 2 simultaneous famines declared in a world of supposed technological abundance. This is the paradox of our time. We have never been more advanced, yet we have never been more vulnerable. We are a high-tech Tower of Babel built on a foundation of sand, and the wind is starting to blow. This is part 1 of the awakening, the realization that the timeline is real, the math is exact, and the fig tree is now fully in bloom, meaning the summer is not just near. It is here, and it is scorching. But as the physical world crumbles, something even more terrifying and profound is happening in the realm of the human spirit and the global flow of information. A phenomenon that is sealing the fate of every soul on this planet. The stage is set, the actors are in place, and the lights are beginning to dim on the world as you knew it. But you haven't even seen the most shocking part of the script yet. Because what happens when the global Bak-hai persecution of truth collides with a digital gospel that has nowhere left to hide? Stay tuned, because in part 2 we are going to dive into the dark heart of the global crackdown on faith, the mysterious final trigger of the digital gospel, and exactly how you can survive the social and spiritual harvest that is currently underway. Ready for the deep dive? The air you breathe is heavy with the scent of a dying era. And if you listen closely, you can hear the gears of the global machinery grinding to a halt to make way for a system that will demand everything you are. So if you thought the geopolitical tremors of part 1 were just a phase, you are about to realize that the cage is being locked, and the only way out is a path most are too blind to see. Welcome to the deep dive of the Awakened Seal, where we strip away the comforting lies of the corporate media and the toothless narratives of modern institutions to reveal the skeletal truth of our 2026 reality. We left off at the precipice of the fig tree generation, but now we must confront the most visceral and terrifyingly specific sign of all, the global war on the human spirit, and the systematic Bak-hai persecution that is no longer a distant whisper from third world jungles, but a screaming reality in the halls of Western power. When Jesus spoke of being hated by all nations for my name's sake, he wasn't just talking about a few bad years for a few missionaries. He was describing a total atmospheric shift, where the very name of truth becomes an allergen to a world built on deception. Look at the numbers that the mainstream refuses to broadcast because it doesn't fit the narrative of secular progress. As over 315 million Christians are currently being crushed under the boot of extreme persecution in the top 50 most hostile nations alone, which means that 1 in every 7 believers on this planet is living in a state of active, life-threatening crisis. This is a statistical anomaly that defies historical trends of tolerance, showing us that as our technology advances, our primal hatred for the divine has only sharpened into a high-tech blade. In Nigeria, the soil is literally soaked in the blood of nearly 3,500 believers killed in a single reporting cycle. While in China, the state has moved beyond mere physical suppression to a digital panopticon where Bible apps are scrubbed from the cloud and pastors are forced to pledge their ultimate loyalty to a political party rather than a king. But don't you dare think you are safe in the civilized West, because the 44% increase in church arsons across Europe and the thousands of criminal acts targeting sacred spaces in the UK are just the physical symptoms of a deeper psychic rot. The economic reality is that we are transitioning into a social credit system where your wrong think or your refusal to bow to the prevailing cultural idols will soon trigger a digital lockout from the very financial systems you depend on for survival. This is the tribulation Jesus spoke of, manifesting as a slow-motion strangulation of anyone who refuses to participate in the collective delusion. You see, the global economy is being hollowed out by design, with inflation and debt traps being used to domesticate the population into accepting a central bank digital currency, CBDC, that will act as the ultimate leash. They are preparing the ground for a world where you cannot buy or sell unless you are part of the approved digital identity framework, which is the secular shadow of the very prophecy we've ignored for centuries. While the world stares at the shiny distractions of AI-generated entertainment and the circus of partisan politics, the architects of the Great Reset are merely the unwitting handmaids of a much older, much more sinister agenda. But here is where the logic becomes truly mind-bending. At the exact same moment that the world is closing its doors to the truth is finding a way to bypass every physical wall through the prophetic trigger of the digital gospel. For 2,000 years, the Great Commission was an impossible task, a logistical nightmare of mountain ranges, oceans, and iron curtains that kept billions in the dark. But in our specific generation, the Starlink satellites and the invisible threads of the internet have created a global nervous system that the gospel is now traveling through like a lightning bolt. We are witnessing the first time in human history where a villager in the most remote part of the Sahel or a prisoner in North Korea can look at a smuggled smartphone and hear the words of Jesus in their own dialect, thanks to AI-powered translation and satellite penetration. Jesus said that the end would come only after this witness reached every nation, and for the first time since the Mount of Olives, that box is being checked in real time. This is the convergence that should make your skin crawl with the realization of where we are on the timeline. We have the restoration of Israel in 1948 starting the clock, the eruption of 46 simultaneous wars creating the global instability, the 318 million people starving to death in a world of wasted abundance, and the seismic groaning of the earth itself, all culminating in this final digital push of the gospel to the ends of the earth. It is a perfect storm, a mathematical certainty that we are the generation that will see the final frame of the movie. You are living in a period of hyper-reality, where the spiritual and the physical are merging, and the normalcy bias that keeps most people dreaming of a 20-year retirement plan is a lethal psychological trap. The social survival of the next few years will not be about who has the most canned goods or the most ammunition. Though being prepared is wise, it will be about who has the mental and spiritual fortitude to stand when the entire world is bowing to a lie. We are seeing a separation of the wheat and the tares happening in real time through social media algorithms and the polarization of society, where everyone is being forced to choose a side, and there is no longer any neutral ground to hide in. The economic collapse that is looming is not an accident of bad policy. It is a pruning hook designed to force dependency on a system that hates your autonomy. You must understand that the wars and rumors of wars are designed to keep you in a state of trauma, because a traumatized mind is easy to lead and even easier to deceive. But you, if you are listening to this, have been given the seal of awareness, a chance to look at the data of 2026 and realize that the God who predicted the exact day of Israel's rebirth And the exact nature of our global conflict is the same God who is now knocking on the door of your heart. The most terrifying part is not the famine or the earthquakes. It is the realization that the time for maybe later has officially run out. The generation that saw the fig tree bloom is gray-haired and fading, and the 80-year limit of Psalm 90 is staring us in the face with a cold, unrelenting stare. This is the harvest. The world is being shaken so that everything that can be shaken will be removed, leaving only that which is eternal. You have spent your life building a sandcastle on a beach where the tide has already started to come in, and instead of running for higher ground, you are arguing about the color of the plastic shovel in your hand. Wake up. The political leaders you think will save you are merely actors on a stage whose script was written long ago, and the economic systems you trust are nothing more than a digital ledger that can be erased with a single keystroke. Your survival in this transition depends entirely on your ability to disconnect from the matrix of worldly security and anchor yourself in the one reality that has remained unchanged for 2 millennia. Jesus didn't give us these signs to make us prophecy nerds or to fill us with useless fear. He gave them to us as a map so that when the world goes dark, we would know exactly where the light is coming from. He is coming back, not as a symbol, not as a metaphor, but as the literal king of the universe to reclaim a planet that has tried to forget him. The all-nations hatred is the final desperate gasp of a world that knows its time is short. Every arson, every arrest of a believer, every digital shadow ban of the truth is a confession of fear from the principalities that rule this present darkness. They know the math. They see the fig tree. They hear the digital gospel echoing in the tunnels of the underground. And so they are accelerating their plans, trying to lock down the human race before the king arrives to claim his own. You are standing in the most significant window of time that any human being has ever inhabited, and to waste it on the trivialities of 2026 consumerism is a tragedy beyond words. The famine is not just for bread, it is for the word of God in a world that has replaced truth with my truth. And the earthquakes are not just in the ground, they are in the very foundations of human identity. We are being redefined by technology, monitored by AI, and sold to the highest bidder by a system that views us as human capital to be managed and eventually discarded. But the king calls you by name. He tells you that when you see these things, you should look up, not look at your bank account. Not look at the polls, but look up because your redemption is drawing near. This is not a drill. This is not a religious pep talk. This is a cold, hard analysis of the convergence of prophecy, technology, and human depravity. The door is at the doors. The handle is turning. The light from the other side is already beginning to leak through the cracks of our crumbling reality. If you have been waiting for a sign, you have just seen 46 wars, 2 famines, 1,000 earthquakes, and a global digital witness all screaming at you at once. What more do you need? A personal invitation written in the stars? It's already been written in the blood of the martyrs and the ink of the scrolls. The only question that remains is whether you will be found ready, or whether you will be among those who cry out for the rocks to fall on them because they couldn't bear to face the truth they spent their lives avoiding.